Hello everyone, this is Al Spectral. Welcome back to the Land of Empires. And today I want to make a video comparing the value and the cost of the Infantry Echelon formation upgrade. And as far as I'm aware, this is the only upgrade in the Land of Empires that requires real money. So I think it's a lot of players have been interested in deciding, like, once you reach VIP 12, which is when this upgrade unlocks, is it actually worth spending the $500 or the $400 after the discount they give you at the Newverse website, which is 20% discount? Whether spending $400 to max the Infantry Echelon formation is actually worth the stat you gain from it. So the metrics I'm going to be using is the quantification of damage dealt and reduced damage taken. So for whatever upgrades that you give yourself in this game, your damage dealt will increase by a certain factor. And that factor will depend on your current stat and the amount of stat that you're actually gaining. And the other side is the reduced damage taken. So if you upgrade your defense or HP, for example, you will take less damage than before. Similar to attack and ferocity, you will deal increased attack to your opponent. And players are really interested to see if they, or know, I should say, if they want to spend money. Is that money better off going towards, for example, Refined Sands to upgrade T12 or Glorious tiers beyond Glorious 10? Or is it worth spending it on maybe just a few or the entirety, oops, not this one, or the entirety of the Echelon, Infantry Echelon formation? Whether you will get greater benefit from the Echelon formation as opposed to other upgrade types. So I hope to answer that question today. And unfortunately, I'll have to leave this game interface and go to these boring slides because that is where this information can be best conveyed. So in terms of costs, it costs $80 to unlock. Of course, you first need to unlock VIP 12, however long it takes to do that. But to actually unlock the formation itself, it takes $80. Once you unlock it, you can upgrade it to level 20. If you buy the first 100 flags, so the formation, the infantry formation, the infantry echelon formation comes in 100 flag packs. So you can only spend, well, you need to buy 100 at a time. You cannot just say, I want to buy 10 and then another 10 so that I can reach these specific tiers. And that kind of makes it unfortunate because if you buy the first 100, you can only reach level 60. If you buy the next 100, you cannot go to level 100. You're stuck at level 80 with like 70 excess flags and so on. So the only two kind of tiers that I'm going to measure are the level 60 and level 120 tier. So to give a brief summary of the base formation stats that you have on your infantry without purchasing the Echelon formation is as follows. If you upgrade your Echelon formation to level 60, you will gain a bit of extra stats across the board as follows. And at 120, you gain the following stats. So this is just for your own reference. And based on these stat differences, what I do is I use the damage formula. And this is the formation section. You can see that these stats work fairly similar to your regular stats, except they have less of an effect. So your formation stats are actually divided by 5 first, before accounting for the actual ratio factor. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. Formation stats are not as impactful as your regular stats. But anyways, moving on to the actual power gain, which is what we're really interested in. So if you upgrade your infantry formation to level 60 from nothing, compared to your base formation stats, your infantry will deal 1.264 fold increased damage to your opponent. So for example, if your infantry is dealing 1,000 damage to your opponent, they are now going to deal 1,264. Similarly to the damage, reduced damage taken portion, your damage will be reduced by 1.106 fold. Or in other words, if you originally took 1,000 damage, you will now take 904 damage. If you max your formations, your total damage dealt will be increased by 1.6 fold. So compared to without infantry echelon formation at all, your infantry will actually deal 60% more damage than before, which is quite decent on some heroes actually. For the damage taken portion, unfortunately, it is not as impressive. You only receive a 1.289 fold reduced damage, or in other words, if you originally took 1,000 damage, you would take 776 damage. And the reason why there's such a big difference between the damage dealt increase and the damage taken reduced is if you look at the actual stats you gain from these formations. Notice that a majority of those stats come from attack and ferocity. Not only that, the other stats, the other formation types, which we can see summarized here, they are already very, very high on defense and HP. So compared to your base stats, you're really not gaining much when you're upgrading the infantry formation stats. Let me just double check that. HP, you get 148. Yeah, that looks about right. So you get a decent amount of HP, barely any defense, unfortunately, and you get a lot more ferocity and attack compared to before. We can see that without the Infantry Echelon, our attack and ferocity values are actually really low. So in terms of infantry heroes, like what heroes would most benefit from the Echelon formation? I would say Kellerman is my first, pretty much the season hero that would benefit most from the Infantry Echelon formation, because not Kellerman, but I'm too used to using Kellerman, but actually I'm referring to the season 6 infantry hero. What's their name? Like, I use Kellerman so often. Oh yeah, it's this fox looking girl. Frost, yes, Frost, that's her name. But I've been using different heroes equipped with the season 6 armor so often, but that I forgot what the base season 6 infantry hero is. But anyways, I think Infantry Echelon formation will be most useful in season 6. It will be somewhat useful in season 7 because the season 7 hero within the context of season 7, he actually deals a lot of damage as well, particularly against the backline. So if you are running a formation, say 776 for example, then that formation is quite reliant on your season 7 infantry hero doing damage. However, a lot of people invest into Leona in season 7. So if you have a very strong archer, then that will significantly mitigate the impact of the infantry stats. Because Leona by herself is really, really good in season 7. And if you have a strong archer, then you don't really need a strong infantry that deals damage, because most of your damage will come from the archer rather than the infantry. Now in season 8, I don't think this is that significant in season 8. There are compositions where this can be very good. For example, if we're looking at 866, yes. So Khufu paired together with the season 6 infantry or armor variation and the season 6 archer and or armor variation. And in that composition, a lot of the damage is actually coming from Khufu, despite that hero being very well known for doing very little damage. Khufu is actually able to deal quite a decent amount of damage when the other two heroes are not season 8, which is, I don't know why, somewhere in the game mechanics, but yeah. In season 9, I don't think it's as important as before at all, because the season 9 is just messed up. I don't really want to talk about it, but the Infantry Echelon formation is really useful in season 6, and it kind of falls off afterwards. For one of the reasons is what I just mentioned. Heroes, they're just not as good. Infantry heroes, I mean. And the other reason is the advent of tier 12. And tier 12 kind of dilutes this formation stats a bit further. You get a lot of formation stats from T12 upgrades, and all of this is assumed that your base formation stats only comes from the flags. So yeah, season 7 and 8 probably don't go for Echelon formation. Yeah, so that is what I just talked about. You get a lot of dilution from relics and also T12 upgrades. So finally, I want to compare against the cost and efficiency of G11 through Glorious 15. So as you saw earlier, I used these multipliers to reflect increased damage dealt and decreased damage taken. Now, Glorious tiers work the same way. If you upgrade from Glorious 10 to Glorious 11, your damage across all three troop types will increase by 1.15 fold, and the damage taken will decrease by 1.15 as well. Going from Glorious 11 to Glorious 12, that number is 1.1. It goes back to 1.15 at Glorious 13, down to 1.1 for Glorious 14. I don't know why they do this. And back up to 1.15 for Glorious 15. In case anyone's wondering, for Glorious 6 through 10, it is all 1.15 per tier. So Glorious 6 to 10 is very, very impactful. Now, as we saw earlier, if you upgrade to the level 60 formation, I would say you would get at best around a 1.18 overall multiplier for your infantry only. And if you want to max your infantry formation, you would get at best a 1.4 multiplier for your infantry only. And once again, this is only applied to the infantry, whereas your other upgrades applies to all three heroes. And I guess now that I'm looking back on how I presented this, it may be more interesting to compare against upgrading the tier 12 for the infantry pass, because we're comparing infantry to infantry rather than infantry against all three troop types. But I hope to really kind of show or emphasize here that it only costs, well, quote unquote only, it only costs $530, assuming 9 cents per $0.8 to go from Glorious 10 to maxed Glorious 12. And not only do you get this 1.27 fold power boost to all three troop types, you also get quite a bit of increased march capacity, as well as increased overall stats that you get from the Hall of Heroes. So if we compare this to the maxed out infantry echelon formation, then Glorious 11 to 12 looks much, much better. So in conclusion, infantry echelon formation is really not worth your money after season... change this to season 6. Yeah, after season 6, I really don't think this is worth your money. Once getting ahead of myself. Once T12 unlocks, you're better off upgrading your T12 or waiting for kind of the discount packs. I think it's really, really crazy what they did. They basically discounted the refined sands from a previous ratio of 2 per dollar all the way to 8 per dollar in the middle of season 8. So we basically had our glorious upgrades, our T12 upgrades, discounted by a factor of 4. And I think that is absolutely insane. So suddenly it makes these upgrades a no-brainer compared to upgrades we're used to value, which is the Infantry Echelon. So yeah, don't bother with it. If you're a lower spender and you just reached VIP 12, even in season 8, I would caution against the Infantry Echelon formation. If you do really want to get the Infantry Echelon formation, I think level 60 is more than enough. It will cost you $160 or $200 if you don't buy from the Newverse website, and stop at that point. I really don't think that level 120 is worth it unless you are already at Glorious 15 and T12.3 plus. So yeah, that is the verdict. Hope everyone enjoyed. I'll have to think about the topic for my next video, but in the meantime, take care everyone.